Hello. My name is Brianna Welterman. I use she, her pronouns. I have been a resident of Silverton for 17 years. I attended most of high school at Silverton High School and returned after graduating college to live and raise a family here in Silverton. It's so vital that I share with you how unimportant my voice is in all of this. My white, middle-class, cisgendered, queer self has no room in this conversation. I hesitate to stand up here and say anything because the voices we need to hear are those of people of color. Okay, thanks. I've always felt like my job in this movement has been to be a platform to elevate the voices and actions of those who don't have the inherent privilege that I do, that many here in this community have. As a predominantly white community, most of us are able to shut off the TV, turn off our phones, not respond to the hard things, not have these tiring experiences. Not everyone gets to walk down our streets without fear of being harassed by someone driving by, or other students in their classrooms and hallways, or by police officers. Until everyone in our community feels safe, we cannot stop working. We cannot stop elevating the voices other than our own. We cannot stop asking, how can I do better? How can this community do better? We all love this town. But what if we stopped pretending like there was nothing wrong occurring in our town and humbled ourselves to see other people's realities? I've seen tireless work over the past 5 years to make this community better, from advocates to reducing houselessness, to showing up for the LGBTQA community at the high school, to making our schools safer for the health of students and staff in regards to facilities and equity work. We are a community of action. We see a problem and we create the change by working tirelessly, often met with pushback. That pushback occurs because it often isn't a message that our community has allowed to be elevated in the past. It's uncomfortable and difficult. We are faced with realities that we don't understand or haven't experienced and are asked to take action. Action that requires hard conversations with neighbors, friends, and family. We aren't all in a position to protest shoulder to shoulder in the streets, and it leaves many asking, what can I do? How can I make a difference? How can I make a change? Listen. Listen to people of color. Acknowledge your own racism. Do anti-racism work. Acknowledge your privilege and use it to elevate the voices that need it the most. Donate to organizations that support people of color. Support local businesses owned by people of color. Participate in politics on local and national levels. Keep having conversations with people that say or do racist things. It's not enough to ignore it anymore. Find ways to challenge their ideas, but do it peacefully. Peaceful doesn't always mean easy. Teach your kids how to respond to hate and racism peaceful ways. Teach them to see people and their experiences as unique and valuable, especially the ones that are different from their own. Learn about hidden racism. Start making reparations by demanding change in our community, at schools, your workplace, and our police department. Be open to being held accountable for your mistakes and learn from them. Don't ask people of color to do the research for you. The internet is a deep well of information right at your fingertips. You don't have to get it right all the time. You just have to be willing to hear you're wrong and move forward in a humble way. When you have feelings that make you uncomfortable, sit with it. Ask yourself why that narrative is making you feel that way. That's where the work needs to be done. The youth that are here to share their stories are so brave, and they're so tired. They're ready for change in this country, but most of all in this town. And they're ready for change in their schools. We are a great community. Look at all of you. There's so many of you here. I'm so impressed and so proud of you all. But continued complacency will put this work on future generations and keep us years behind other communities who are looking at themselves from within and noticing the work that needs to be done. We're better than that. We have work to be done. We have a chance to stand up and say, let's do better, so that our community members feel safe, and not just the ones who are inherently privileged to feel that way, because that's easy. We are a community that shows up doing hard work for the voices that can't be heard. Let's fight for our community to be better. Let's be a community that knows there's always work to be done, and be humble. Oriana, Sam, and Evelyn are going to share their experiences as students in our community that have experienced racism. Listen to them with your whole heart and believe them. Remember their stories. Share them with your friends and family who don't believe that we have racism in our town. Keep listening and keep learning.
First off, I'd like to thank everybody for being here. The support makes my heart happy. I was asked to share my story to help bring about change and unity. It has been brought to my attention that there are some in this community that feel I've been given my story to you, hoping to receive pity. And, oh, Oriana, I'm so proud of you. I'm in no way seeking pity or anything like that. What I am seeking is that you as a community stand with me and help bring change. This is not a sob story. This is my story. I hope that you keep in mind that I cannot speak for every African American in this community, nor this nation. I speak only for myself and my experiences. I was born and raised in the town of Silverton, Oregon. I lived with my mother, who is white, full-time, and visited my father, who is black, on the weekends. I was only exposed to black culture through my dad and his side of the family, which wasn't very often. My dad tried to teach me more about black history whenever he could. In fact, I remember him telling me when I was young that people will not like me because of the color of my skin. In response to that, my younger self told him that racism doesn't exist anymore. I was in for a shocking surprise. Growing up in this town became a struggle for me in 3rd grade. I bet you are probably thinking, how could a child at such a young age struggle? And I can tell you now that at the time, I didn't realize I was different from anyone else. I thought I looked like every little boy and girl there until the day someone made it clear that I was not the same as them, using the color of my skin as a barrier between us. They didn't hate me because of my skin, though. I was privileged then. In 4th grade, I remembered that I was made fun of for having curly hair. My hair was seen as a distraction to my classmates and teachers. I was not seen as beautiful because I did not have silky straight hair. I gave in to my insecurities time after time and finally permanently straightened my hair, which I continued to do for the next 6 years of my life, completely damaging my hair. At least I was seen as more beautiful though, right? That year I met one of the greatest influences in my life. She was the first person who ever told me that my skin was beautiful aside from my family. Before I met her, I hated being darker than anyone else. I was ugly. 5th grade at Robert Frost Elementary was an interesting experience. One day in school, we were reading a book in class that stated the N-word, and the teacher not only allowed it herself, but the students to say it as well. Time flew by till I reached freshman year at Silverton High School, thinking that life as an African American woman would get better, but disappointingly it got worse. In my English class, we were reading To Kill a Mockingbird. A girl stated, and I quote, "Black people are like raccoons and we should shoot them." In the middle of class, she had no consequences, but not only was racist comments like this being said aloud throughout class, microaggressions towards African Americans in general were made as well. Great start to freshman year, right? But no, it doesn't stop there. Sophomore year, I was sitting in my AG when a classmate repeatedly said the N-word to my face, and when I reported this to the school and asked to be removed from this AG, it took them over 3 months to even recognize the situation. When addressing the situation, they made me have a face-to-face conversation with him, and during this conversation, the boy who called me the N-word claimed that he didn't mean to hurt my feelings. He thought that I'd be okay with him saying that. I wasn't taken out of this AG until the beginning of my sophomore year. In the middle of my sophomore year, a group of boys thought it'd be a great idea to make a group chat making fun of black people. Not only did it hurt my feelings that they were making fun of people of color, but that I was one of the ones being talked about. They continue to claim till this day that the group chat never existed, but yet there is proof. By the end of my sophomore year, continuing to my junior year, I gave up. I gave up hope that one day things will change. I stopped caring about the things that people said to me or about me. The racial slurs in the hallway became louder, and my strength to ignore them faded away. In my junior year, during Black History Month, Zara Deshaw and I took the time out of our school day to create a bulletin board. We left the board, which was about black excellence, unattended for 30 minutes to come back to it being vandalized. Our school tried to make situations like these seem better. They created an equity team to help try and comprehend what minorities go through at SHS. The team of students was Emmeline Morales Sierra, Zara Deshaw, and Brady Tavernier, and me. We were lucky enough to be given an opportunity to use our voice. Everyone should be disturbed seeing police brutality and killings of African Americans on social media and news outlets, and nobody doing anything. Dear people of Silverton, Oregon, do you not understand that outside of this perfect little town that everyone loves, people are dying and suffering because of the color of their skin? Only 13 out of 104 police brutality cases in 2015 till this day were where an unarmed black person was killed by a police officer, resulting in the officer being charged with the crime. And 4 out of those 13 cases ended in a mistrial, where charges against the officer were dropped. Think about that. If you aren't doing anything, you are part of the problem as well, so I am begging you, stand up. Use your...
Oriana.
Use your voice against people who are being oppressed. Stop using hurtful language like the N-word for fun, because that may have been the last word somebody heard before they died. Think about the hundreds of African American people in this country who fear for their lives or lost them. Learn the names of the ones who were unrightfully killed. Stop using your privilege to shield your eyes, and if you think that this message is directed towards you, maybe ask yourself why you think that to begin with. It's time to stop turning your back on people of color and standing up and fighting back against injustice with them. I know that this is hard to take in, but this town has failed to make people of color at home and feel safe. I not only speak for myself, but the others who have cried out to this community for help only to get backlash.
Oh, you speak for me also. I just want you to know that, dear.
Thanks. The time for change has been so long overdue, so I ask you, how many more have to die until you take action?
Yeah.
Don't be someone who hates being called racist more than they hate racism. Thank you for letting me share my story with you all.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah! That's how you
My
do
name is
it.
Evelyn Morales Sierra, and I would just like to start off by saying that I'm inspired by all of you for believing and standing behind George Floyd and all the others who have become victims of police brutality. In our small community, there are many issues we must address, beginning with the tolerance that is given to racism. As a white passing Latina, the amount of racism I've experienced here is disgusting. I've been called multiple racist slurs and constantly been told to go back to my country.
Yeah. Get right on the mic.
While also
There.
watching as no repercussions were given. Speaking out about this and having nothing done is a slap to the face. Yet, this is nothing compared to what others in our communities have experienced. While many of us white passing people of color will never or have never been judged by our skin color, we will not turn a blind eye. We must fight alongside our persecuted brothers and sisters. Even though we don't know what others may do, it is up to us to make a difference. We will not let these atrocities go on, especially in our own communities. We must hold our neighbors accountable. That slightly problematic comment from your loved one isn't just a joke. or not meant to hurt anybody. Because these are the exact breeding grounds for explicit bigotry. This, along with the systems which have been built to oppress generations of people of color, will be removed because of us. These prejudice systems have taken too many lives. Enough is enough. The videos and testimonies we see everywhere of injustices are testaments of improvement needed throughout our country. The movement emerging all over the nation is proof that if people of color are strong enough to build a nation, we are also powerful enough to change it. Because those who call for the reforming of their country for the better are the most patriotic. But let it be known that the fight doesn't end today or tomorrow or even after the election. But until we live in a country where love is love, Black lives matter, immigrants and refugees are respected, and diversity is welcome. So thank you.
My name is Sam Perez, and I've been asked to speak at this event. I'm going to share my story. Silverton, Oregon is a place of privilege, a place where there's little diversity and lack of compassion for those who are a minority. Many places across the world, especially places across the United States, can say the same thing about their town, but it all becomes real when you experience these things firsthand in the place you grew up in. I grew up with a Mexican father and a white mother. At school, I was treated like everybody else. That was until they saw my dad. Whenever he would come to school conferences or drop me off or pick me up at school, I noticed a shift in how people treated me. People would make racist statements and justify them by saying it was a joke. When the years went on, I began to identify more with my Chicano heritage, as I began to realize that I looked more like my father than my mother. And that's when I began to get racial slurs thrown at me or people telling me to go back to my country. I reported these incidences to my teachers, since most of the time they happened at my school, but nothing would be done. Kids would continue to shout slurs in the hallways to not just me, but other Hispanics and African American kids. This made me feel uncomfortable to the point that I began doing homeschool in the middle of sophomore year. Kids shouldn't be scared to go to school because of the color of their skin. Black folks shouldn't be murdered by corrupt cops because of an allegedly forged check, because they're on the phone with a family member, because they're wearing a hoodie or driving with a broken taillight, because they're sitting in the comfort of their own homes. We need to reach out to our police department and require them to recognize racial bias in their departments and what we can do to stop it, or what they can do to stop it. We need to speak out of these injustices towards people of color, because we're not ever getting George Floyd back, or Breonna Taylor, or Oscar Grant, Michael Brown, Tony McDade, Stephon Clark, Tanisha Anderson, Tamir Rice, Sandra Bland, and so many more. We need to stand with our brothers and sisters of color. Thank you.